Two Hollywood legends. One quiet conversation. No cameras, no script, no spotlight. Just raw truth. When Mel Gibson, the man behind The Passion of the Christ, asked Keanu Reeves a simple question about Jesus, he wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. But what Keanu said next left him completely speechless. His voice shook. His eyes filled with tears. And what followed was one of the most unexpected, soul-stirring moments ever witnessed off-camera. What did Keanu say that touched the heart of a director who spent his life telling Jesus' story? Stay with me, because this might just change how you see strength, love, and faith. It happened in a quiet moment after a buzzing press event had just ended. The cameras had been turned off, reporters had left the room, and the lights that once lit the stage were now being packed away by tired crew members. In a quiet backstage corner, two Hollywood icons, Keanu Reeves and Mel Gibson, stood together, away from the noise. There was no script, no spotlight, just an honest moment between two men who had seen the highs and lows of life. Mel, known for his deep passion for faith and for directing the emotionally intense film The Passion of the Christ, was discussing his upcoming project, a sequel that aimed to explore even deeper aspects of Jesus' final hours. He wasn't preaching, just sharing. But then, he turned to Keanu and asked a simple question: "Have you ever thought deeply about Jesus?" Keanu paused, his gaze steady yet distant, as if pulling from somewhere deep inside. What he said next wasn't loud, but it echoed. It was something so profound, so raw, that Mel froze. His breath caught. His heart, it seemed, was struck by something pure. And then, Mel Gibson's eyes welled up with tears. This wasn't acting. This wasn't drama. It was real emotion, born from words that reached into the soul. What could Keanu, a man of few words and quiet mystery, have possibly said about Jesus to move the passionate Mel Gibson to tears? Let's take a step back and uncover the full story. Mel Gibson's journey of faith is one that has drawn both admiration and controversy over the years. Raised in a devout Catholic household, his beliefs have always been a core part of who he is, even during the most turbulent times of his life. Through public struggles and personal redemption, one thing has remained constant: Mel's deep connection to the story of Jesus. His 2004 film The Passion of the Christ wasn't just a cinematic project. It was a spiritual mission. A raw, intense portrayal of Christ's final hours that left audiences stunned and Hollywood forever changed. The film spoke to millions, and it spoke volumes about Mel's devotion. Keanu Reeves, by contrast, is the complete opposite in how he approaches faith. A quiet soul, full of grace and mystery, Keanu rarely discusses religion. He doesn't wear his beliefs on his sleeve. He doesn't give long philosophical answers or quote scripture in interviews. Instead, when once asked what he believes happens after death, he paused and gently said, "I know that the ones who love us will miss us." It was a simple response, yet it carried the weight of deep personal truth and grief. But something was different that day behind the scenes. Maybe it was the quiet of the room, the absence of media noise, or the energy of two men who had seen and lost so much in life. Whatever it was, Keanu opened up in a way he rarely does. He spoke from the heart. And what came out, what he said about Jesus, was so sincere, so deeply human, that even Mel Gibson, a man who had studied the Gospels for decades, was left completely surprised. Mel Gibson was passionately discussing his upcoming sequel to The Passion of the Christ, diving into the emotional weight and spiritual depth he hoped to capture. He spoke with the intensity of a man who had lived and breathed this story for years. Then, casually yet curiously, he turned to Keanu Reeves and asked, "Have you ever thought deeply about Jesus?" It was a question asked without expectation, just genuine interest. Keanu paused. There was a stillness in his expression, as if searching for the right words from a place far beneath the surface. Then, in his calm, thoughtful tone, he began, "You know, Mel, I don't go to church. I don't read the Bible every day. But Jesus, he's one of the most powerful symbols of love I've ever seen." Mel tilted his head slightly, intrigued. Keanu continued, this time with more weight in his voice, "To forgive the very people who tortured you. To speak love while bleeding. That's not just divine. That's strength. That's real power. And I think the world has forgotten what real strength looks like." The room, which had already been quiet, seemed to fall into a deeper silence. There was no need to respond, The words hung heavy in the air. But Keanu wasn't finished. He leaned in slightly, his eyes steady, and said, "Most people think power is in fighting, guns, or shouting. But I think Jesus showed us, true power is silent, gentle, sacrificial." And in that moment, something unspoken shifted in the room. Not just for Mel, but for everyone who heard it. Mel Gibson didn't see it coming. Of all people, it was Keanu Reeves, a man known for his deep silence, private grief, and quiet compassion, who had just spoken words that went straight to the heart. For years, Keanu had lived with loss, the death of his best friend, his partner, his child, and yet he never lashed out, never crumbled in the spotlight. Instead, he became even more still, even more kind. So when he spoke about Jesus, not with religion, but with raw emotion, it felt different. It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't intellectual. It was pure. And Mel could feel the weight of it settle in his chest. Mel stepped back slightly, overwhelmed. His eyes glistened, emotion welling up from somewhere deep inside. After a long pause, he finally said, "Keanu, I've worked with priests, scholars, theologians. But what you just said, that's one of the clearest expressions of Jesus I've ever heard." Keanu didn't smile for attention. He didn't say thank you. He simply nodded, eyes soft, heart calm. And then he said something even more profound: "You don't need to wear a cross to understand what it stands for." That line hit Mel hard. He reached out, placed a hand on Keanu's shoulder, and with a quiet voice that carried years of struggle and faith, whispered, "I think I needed to hear that today." In that sacred moment between two men, no cameras, no crowd, just truth, something truly holy had been spoken. That conversation never made headlines. There were no viral tweets, no breaking news segments, no flashing clickbait. It was just two men, Keanu Reeves and Mel Gibson, sharing a rare, honest, and deeply spiritual moment away from the spotlight. No microphones, no scripts, just truth. But as fate would have it, a crew member nearby overheard the exchange. Quietly, they shared it online, almost like passing along a secret too powerful to keep. And soon, the story spread like wildfire, not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. In a world constantly shouting for attention, Keanu's quiet words felt like a whisper from the soul. A reminder that Jesus' message was never about rituals, ceremonies, or grand displays of holiness. It was about something much simpler. Love that forgives even when it hurts. Strength that chooses sacrifice over dominance. Peace that doesn't need to be loud to be felt. And maybe, just maybe, that's why Mel Gibson, the man who gave the world one of the most powerful films about Christ, stood there with tears in his eyes. Not because of guilt, not because of grief, but because he had just been reminded, in the gentlest way possible, of the very heart of the story he once told the world. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of what true strength and love really mean. And if you want more stories that inspire, heal, and move you, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, because we're just getting started. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the quietest words carry the loudest truth.